Kyle, Adam Cowie, Matt Dahl, Councilmember Tom Peterson, Brenda Moore is filling in for Mayor Kemp today, Clint Morris, Jason Sant, and Todd Christensen. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Let me add those numbers real quick. Yep, we're good with the quorum.
All right, very good. Thanks, Krista. Well, let me then just welcome everybody here formally to our meeting in the summer of 2021 here. It's been a little while since I've seen you. Nice to see everybody. In our continued era of uncertainty. What was that?
Wayne, this is Josh. I wanted to just double check to see if the video feed is up on YouTube because I'm not seeing it there, Roger. Are we live on that?
It's telling me we're live. Let me see. Yeah, there's a live. It's going.
Okay. Yep. I can see it now. Sorry for the interruption there, Wayne.
No problem, Josh. Okay, let's move on to item 2 here, approval of the minutes. Anybody want to make a motion or have questions on the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes. This is Adam.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
I'll second those. That's all.
Thank you, Matt. All in favor of approving the minutes of June 14th, 2021, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Okay, then the minutes are unanimously approved. And as always, Krista, if I forget any of the items that needs a by actual member vote, feel free to interrupt and get me on the right track there. Okay, with that approval, let's go on to item number 3. Consider approval of resolution UT 21-03, approving a 4th amendment to our interlocal cooperative agreement between UIA and Utopia. Laurie, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Roger. Are you going to pull up the packet?
Yes.
Can you? Would you please? Thank you. Okay. Okay, this is the amendment. The resolution is a proposal to adopt the 4th amendment to the service contract between UIA and Utopia. This was presented earlier to the UIA board and they adopted the resolution. Once it's adopted by both entities, each board chair will sign it and it will be effective. The purpose of this resolution is to amend the fees that are paid by UIA to Utopia for activities at Utopia. And there are, the management fee is the, this is for the service contract. I will mention that there are 2 pieces of the money that is transferred between UIA to Utopia. The management fee is an allocation of the mostly executive costs that are incurred at Utopia that should be covered by UIA. And this transfer of funds as a management fee is the mechanism to make sure that those are indeed covered by UIA and not borne by Utopia. The management fee has increased from 2.3 million in 21 to 2.7 million in 22. The budget that was passed in June reflects these increased fees. The service contract, these are fees based on new connections, field services, etc. For the provisioning fee, this fee is a one-time cost each time a new UIA customer is added to the network. The NOC has to go in and provision it. The previous costs were the previous cost was $14.30. That's been increased 10% to $15.75. The NOC operations fee or network operations fee is a monthly fee that is imposed on each UIA connection. It covers the NOC surveillance, and the amount prior to the amendment was $6.50 per UIA device per month. That has been adjusted upwards by 10% to $7.15. The field services portion is based on UIA addresses passed as opposed to connections. We are anticipating 20,000 additional addresses in 2022, and we propose increasing the fee from $1.20 per address passed per month to $1.30. A lot of these increases are based on wage increases for personnel over the years. We're averaging about 3% per year in wage increases. We didn't amend these fees last year. We did amend them for fiscal year 2020. And the fees are based on an estimate of 600 new connections per month. That's 7,200 new UIA customers per year. And then, as I mentioned, the 20,000 additional addresses. I had some questions in the UIA board meeting about how these are calculated. I can send this summary out. But for the UIA management fee, the way it breaks out is about 80% of administrative costs are allocated to UIA, 50% of direct technology costs, 95% of marketing and sales. This is because essentially all new connections that are coming onto the network are UIA. UIA is in 2022 paid for all of the direct advertising, and UIA is also reimbursing Utopia for about 95% of the marketing and sales staff. And then on customer service, the total customer service budget is allocable 25% to Utopia and 75% to UIA. On the service contract obligation, we look at this both ways. We look at the increases that we have had in wages, and we also look at what the costs are in the Utopia departments. Almost all the way down: finance, network operating center, Blue Stakes locating, field services, and operations administration, and network engineering. The breakdown is about 25% Utopia and 75% UIA, and that matches the subscriber count and the ratio of Utopia connections to UIA connections. Warehouse, 90% UIA, since almost all of the construction that we're doing is UIA. So again, I can send this out so that you can see some of the assumptions and calculations behind these numbers.
I think that'd be great, Laurie, if you would.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. And does anybody have any additional questions?
And I'll just make the comment. I mean, I think the expectation is we would come back every year and adjust the fees, both on the service agreement and these fee schedules. You know, it just makes sense that over time, as UIA grows and grows and grows, we're say, hey, you know, a lot of stuff's happening to UIA, but contractually we have Utopia performing those functions. And so then UIA needs to pay Utopia for the impact it is to that organization. But, you know, the mix of Utopia versus UIA changes pretty dramatically every year, you know, as we go add, you know, 10,000 subscribers onto a system. I mean, when it was only Utopia, we were at about 10,000, and now we've got about over 40,000 subscribers across both Utopia and UIA. Most of those being UIA. And so obviously that mix is going to change over time. Both organizations, if you look at them independently, benefit from that economy of scale. You know, if you just count people, you know, we used to have 50 employees-ish when we had, you know, just Utopia. We're up to, how many employees up to? About 80, 85, Laurie?
Yes.
You know, so we've certainly grown, but, you know, to 60% more staffing. However, we've, you know, more than tripled our subscriber base and our revenues over that same time. So, you know, we are lean. You know, I want to sound like, hey, we're growing and growing and growing. It's like, no, we grow when we need to. Most of that growth is in technicians, and even some of it was in locating, which we were paying someone else to do, and we just in-housed. And so it's actually far more efficient than that 60%, because some of it was just budgeting for it differently. But anyways, this is an ongoing exercise where we come back every year and just say, hey, how do we true up the impact between the two organizations to make sure we're being fair, but also benefiting from that continuing improving economy of scale over time. And as we can pay more money to Utopia for services, that's a good thing for Utopia, obviously.
Any of the board members have any other questions on this, especially for the newer ones that may not have heard or have the background that others do in terms of the relationship between UIA or Utopia? I want to make sure everybody always understands that relationship. So if you have any questions, great. If you don't, and come up with some later, feel free to call myself or Roger at any time.
And just to reiterate for clarification, I believe this was brought up in our budget meetings, but these changes do not change fees for the actual customers, correct?
Correct.
Yes, good
Okay.
point, Adam.
Just
Thank you.
wanted to make sure that was on the record. So
Just fees between the two agencies is all.
Yep.
Just internal.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Roger, can I have the screen back?
Yeah.
Thanks.
You want to see
Couldn't remember
people
what-
again?
I couldn't remember what the next item on the agenda was. Sorry there. The Utopia Fiber Subscriber Survey, Kim.
To approve
I'm
the
up.
resolution.
And Roger, can you now?
Oh, we need to approve that
We need to approve
resolution.
the
Okay.
resolution
Oh, whoops,
for-
sorry. Thank you,
I'm
Kristen.
not up.
Roger both. Sorry about that, Kim. Okay, can we have a motion for approval of Resolution UT 21-03?
Tom Peterson, I'd make that motion.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
Or was that Brenda?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Krista, I believe this one will require a roll call vote.
Yes, Adam Cowie,
Aye.
Matt Dahl,
Matt, was that a yes?
Yes, sorry. Yes.
No problem. Thank you.
Sean Warnke,
Yep.
Councilmember Tom Peterson,
Yes.
Brenda Moore,
Yes.
Councilmember Clint Morris,
Aye.
Jason Sant,
Aye.
Todd Christensen,
Aye.
Wayne Pyle.
Aye.
Okay,
All right, very good. Thank you, everybody. Now we'll move on to item 4. Kim, sorry.
No problem. Roger, can you put up the survey? So while Roger's putting up the survey, every year for the past about 5-6 years, we've done a subscriber survey to kind of give us a baseline of where we are, what our customers think of us, what is the perception, are they glad the cities did this, are they glad with the service? And so we conducted one this past July, from July 8th to July 16th. In about less than a few days, we already had over 3,000 respondents. And that is a little over 10% of our residential customer base. So this survey is statistically relevant. Just going back up, we're starting over again, Roger. Thank you. So if you can start on slide 2.
Just showing the slide or my,
You're in present, you're not, it's not in the
Yeah.
presentation mode. So you can see, like, when we did about a 10% response rate, you could see that they were
Sorry.
coming, you cannot see.
I'll get this. My monitors are hijacking each other here. So I'll get it up here in just a second.
Okay. That we got a response rate from every city we have customers in. I think we had a higher response rate in some cities where we've been building as of late. So you would see a lot from Layton and like some of the other ones. Roger, should I keep going or you're gonna have it up?
It is now about to work properly. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, you can see that we had some in the cities that were building more. And that is probably because we saw the respondents coming from people who signed up more as of late than the people who've been on the network a long time. But we did get respondents from all of the cities that we have residential service in. Okay, next slide, Roger. Another one. When we ask this, we've asked this over and over again. Who's responding to the survey? Usually it's been male. This has been this has been the same for the 6 years that we've been doing it. Most of the people who are male say they are the decision makers of the purchasing decision for internet in their house. Next slide. We skew to a higher ownership population. We have really in the past few years with our month-to-month lease have tried to get entrenched more into the rental market. We are seeing an uptick in rentals, but we have a long way to go to get more into that market. So when we're looking at this survey, it's really to say, where are we today and where can we improve? I think this is one of the places where we could improve. Next slide. Yet again, most people who are on the Utopia service, fiber service, are married. We do not technically, or we don't do well in the single population, but I think that is also with the really in line with the Utah marriage statistics as well. Next slide.
Hey, Kim,
Yeah.
I had a question on that and the previous slide.
Yep.
How much of that response rate, so to speak, or likelihood of respondents has to do with they're living in rental units, meaning apartment complexes where they're actually not even making the decision on internet? Does that have anything to do with that, or is that discounted?
They wouldn't even get the survey if they were in apartments. These are
Okay.
usually like single family home rentals,
Gotcha.
just because we have their contact information. We wouldn't have a contact information for those big apartment complexes to send out the survey. So there is some skewing to that. And as we get into who responded, I think we skew very high on the demographics of who responded. So you have to, when we're looking at the demographics, you have to take that into consideration. So, but yeah, like, so Roger, if you want to go to the next slide. And because we're skewing very high on their salary ranges.
Income, yeah.
Yeah, the income ranges. But we are seeing in previous years, we were almost skewing higher. We are seeing that we're getting more into the mid-level income ranges as well. But this is a factor of how when we're looking at how to change programs and stuff, or what we're doing from a marketing or sales side, that we're looking at these statistics to see how can we get into other areas that we are currently not in. So next slide. And then this is where you'll see, Wayne, that the respondents of this survey skewed 65 and older. So when you're looking at this, the income levels make a lot more sense, and some of the other statistics. And I'm not positive why we skewed so high of people 65 and older responding to the survey. But it was like 40 to 44 and 65 and up are two people. And I mean, you have to go back up. This is 10% of the people who responded. So what
Sure.
are the other 90% who didn't respond? Okay, next slide. And that, I think this is indicative of that it's 65 plus, that 52% of the people who responded do not have children living at home, which is not what we commonly see in Utah. So that's when you have to take some of this with a grain of salt, that it's not necessarily what is our entire subscriber base looks like. So next slide, Roger. And then you are seeing again that our graduate, most of our subscribers who answered have undergrad or graduate degrees. And so we are skewing higher on those demographics. And I think with this is, how do we go back and look at where we can do a little bit better on reaching some of those other populations. So keep going, Roger. And then the survey. Here comes the survey. And I think this is an interesting one. How long have you been a Utopia Fiber subscriber? I mean, over 45 or 44% have been 1 year or less. And I think that is very like, I think that's something I'm not surprised to see, because we had over 10,000 subscribers join this past year. So I think that we would see a lot of these newer customers coming on board. But one of the statistics I love is that we have almost 5% who answered have been a subscriber for 10 years plus. And that means that, like, it's showing that we tell you guys all the time that our churn rate is very low, and you're seeing that we have people who have not left the network over 10 years. So kudos to everyone. Next slide, Roger. And then who's your internet service provider? And we just wanted to see, who are these people subscribing to? What are they looking at? Or do we have a mix of all of our service providers? And we do. Clearly, you see the top three with a big presence, which would be Xmission, Sumo Fiber, and Beehive, who have a lot of respondents. Next slide. Okay. And what are the services? Like, what are these people subscribing to? And we hear all the time, and I hear it, that people don't need the speeds that we're offering. People don't need this, but we're seeing that there's a almost dead split of people who are signing up for 250 meg and 1 gig service. So people are saying they need this kind of speed that we are offering, and especially 1 gig, that we know that the speed and the bandwidth that we provide is the future. An interesting statistic on here is it's saying we have over 66 10 gig residential subscribers. We do not have that many 10 gig subscribers. So some people thought they had 10 gig, and I think that they thought they had the highest speed that we provide, but they don't. We have a lot of businesses and schools on 10 gig connections. We do not necessarily have a lot of residential customers on 10 gig products, but we are seeing an uptick in those as more and more devices are coming out that are 10 gig capable. So next,
and I just want to make the point
Yeah.
that this is existing services of all of our customers, like a sampling of that. When you look at, as people are signing up, and picking between 250 meg, gig, 10 gig, it's trending even higher towards gig, because people signing up now are going to be a little more likely to pick that higher tier. But even this, to say that our existing customer base is a pretty even split, says a lot to people actually do need these speeds, and increasingly so. And very few people on that 100 meg. That's a legacy product. We don't offer that now. But a lot of those people who kind of held on to that have been upgrading, even though they had a lower cost 100 meg service. That people have said, hey, it's worth it to me to pay a little more to get those newer tiers. So
Okay.
All good trends.
Very good trends. Next slide, Roger. How did you hear about UTOPIA? And year over year, and I've said this every time we've done the survey recap, is that we see this exact same, that most of the people, when they answer this, they say they've heard about UTOPIA from their city or our community. And I think that says a lot, that these people live in your community, they believe and they trust you. And so when they hear about it from you, they're more likely to sign up. And this wasn't a question that you had to answer one or another. It was how many of these things have you seen UTOPIA? So, but I think this is the 6th straight year that that hearing from your city or municipality ranked number 1. So next slide, Roger. How many times, where did you, have you had UTOPIA fiber before? Most people say they've never had it before, but we are seeing a trend of people moving into other areas or hearing about it from their business, and saying that they're hearing it or only moving to UTOPIA fiber, other UTOPIA fiber cities. I've heard this over and over again, that people are saying, I would never move to a place that did not have UTOPIA fiber. And this is the first year we asked this question. So it will be interesting to see the metrics next year on this question too, to see if it keeps growing. Next page. And this is something, where do you use the internet? How do you use the internet? And I think it's the same old that we've heard year over year, like social media, streaming movies. One uptick that I think won't surprise anyone, that we saw an uptick of people working from home. So there's 68% of people who were using the UTOPIA fiber service to work from home in this past year. So, and if they didn't have it, I've heard this a lot of times. Crap.
Oh, there you
I
are.
better get a
Okay.
10 gig, Roger.
We
need
caught
to
you're
the,
back.
we caught the
She's not
odd
in the
crowd.
office.
Okay. I'm not in the office. This is why we should always have Utopia Fiber. I lost it at the last meeting as well. But so what do the people use the internet for? Everything that we've always discussed and working from home. But next slide. What devices do you use in home? Most people use the same old stuff. And then we have seen an uptick in home security and smart appliances. I know, I mean, now you even can get refrigerators that connect to the internet. So a lot, we are seeing more and more smart home devices come in. We did ask the question, which I don't have it here, is how many people, like how many devices did you have in the home? And it was interesting when we got some people are like, over 60 that connect to the internet. And I'm like, holy smokes. But if you really look at how many sensors and stuff that you have in your house, it can add up very quickly. So moving on, Roger. What video services do they have? Not surprising, most people have Prime, Netflix, and Disney Plus. But we are seeing more and more people using streaming. Like very few of our customers who come on board sign up for traditional video, even with our service providers. They elect to use streaming services. Next slide. In addition to what other telecommunications, this is not surprising to anyone. Everybody has most people have cell phone with a data plan. Moving on. And then I think this is where you get into some of the meat of the survey is how important were some of these factors in helping you decide to sign up for Utopia. Our subscribers are very price conscious and they want fast speeds. So like a lot of them said it's extremely or very important, the price point that we're offering and that the internet speed is extremely important. Are you here? Oh, there you go.
You're back
You're there.
again.
We can hear you, Kim.
I'm getting killed over here with my internet. Did you guys hear any of that?
Yes.
Okay, next slide then. Choice of provider. This is something that we ask, we feel like it's part of our value proposition. And, but it's not like that people have the choice, but it's not as important to our subscribers as we always think. It's important to them, but it's not important as I would have assumed it would be. So the majority are saying it's very important, but not necessarily extremely important that they have the choice of providers. But this is an interesting one is Utopia is co-sponsored by my city. You don't see a lot of people think it's very important, but when we ask a question later on in the survey, you do see it swap in go in the other direction. And some of these results and why they might vary is depending on how you ask the question. So that's why in some of these surveys, we ask the question different ways to see what the responses are. But keep going, Roger. Most people believe they like that it's a fully fiber network and how our architecture of our network. I don't think this is surprises to anyone. A majority of our customers who come onto the network come on, one of the deciding reasons is because they hate big telco and how they've been treated with like bait and switch and stuff like that. So I don't think that surprises anybody on the call. Next slide. And I think this is what we see over and over again of the two deciding factors of why people sign up for Utopia Fiber are speed and reliability. Over and over the past 6 years, it's always been speed and reliability of the Utopia Fiber network are the two hallmarks of why we have customers. Now, next slide. Next slide, that was just and then this is a question that we ask of how much do you agree with the following statements? And it says, I am glad that my city invested in Utopia Fiber. And you see a huge like margin that people say they strongly agree that they've invested in Utopia Fiber. We do have a decent amount that strongly disagree, but we have an overwhelming majority that strongly agree that their city invested in a municipal network. Next slide. And although I am in marketing and sales and I believe that we're changing people's lives with Utopia Fiber, I think this question kind of shocked me, that we had more respondents believe that we either strongly or agree that we have improved their quality of life. And if you break this out into percentages, it's almost over 77% agree or strongly agree that we have improved their quality of life. Next slide. Next slide. That's just a recap. These are just kind of things of how you rated Utopia Fiber and what the experience was. The quality of internet, very satisfied. And then keep going. The reliability of the internet, people are very satisfied or not satisfied. Keep going. The ability to choose your provider. People, I mean, like I said before, when you ask a question a different way, people answer it a different way. And you do see a more positive swing towards they're very satisfied or satisfied that we have the ability to choose your internet provider. Next slide. The installation process. As you guys know, our installation process is not the easiest. We do trench through yards and sometimes tear up your grandma's flowers, but for the most part, people are very satisfied with our installation process, from the conduit to the in-home installation. So that's great. Keep going. Interactions with customer service. People yet again are pretty satisfied. I laugh about how many people think it's not applicable, their interactions with customer service, because I can guarantee you they've all talked to them at some point, but that's okay. If they can't remember it, it was probably a good experience, is what I always like to say. Next slide.
Well, and there's probably a lot of people that don't associate the installation scheduling with customer service. Like, it's only after the fact when they have problems. And so I'm guessing they just feel like, hey, once it was up and installed, I'm good. So I can believe there's some not applicables in there.
The speed provided, I think we all know that it's, great speed. Keep going. And this is an interesting one. So we've talked about, like, every year we talk about our net promoter score. Roger puts it on all the presentations he does. This year was the first year we asked what our provider's net promoter score was. And if you don't know, if you're not familiar with a net promoter score, it goes across all industries, a net promoter score, and it goes into, the question has to come out like this: how likely is it that you would recommend your ISP to a friend or colleague? So you take the promoters, which are a 9 and 10, and you subtract the detractors, which are 0 through 6. The 7 and 8s are like just neutrals, so those get thrown away. The net promoter score of our ISP this year was 49. I think it was a little lower than I would have anticipated, but we're working through that to see if we have any issues when they need providers or anything like that. A 49 is still a great score. It's still, there's nothing to be ashamed of that score. As people at Utopia know, I am always looking to achieve more. So next year we hope to see this uptick, but we are working closely with our providers and kind of going through the raw data of this survey to see if there is any issues. And
Roger, just for some context, like, we do a lot of city surveys, when we're talking to non-Utopia cities of like whether they want to partner with us. And in these just generic city surveys, they ask like, how likely are you to recommend your current service? And, and the current service is going to be a mix of CenturyLink and Comcast. And those consistently come in with a net promoter score of about -50 to -60. And so those are situations where people are like, no, I would not recommend it. I don't like it. They're frustrated. So obviously a dramatic swing in the favor when they come in with the Utopia service provider and the Utopia service itself. And Kim can talk to that, but these are very good scores.
It is a great score. I mean, there's always a joke internally at Utopia that good is never good enough. That's my motto. So I'm always looking to see how we can improve these scores. And if you, Roger, you want to scroll down to the couple of pages to go to ours, keep going. So year after year, we've done this survey and our net promoter score has very much stayed stable. I think the first year we did it was a 61. I think 2 years ago that we did it, it was a 64. So we're staying pretty steady of where we are. But I think in the previous board meeting, a question was asked of, we've seen tremendous growth in the past couple of years. So like, are we staying stable of our customer satisfaction? And I think, and we are based on this result of a 63. So I think it's a huge benchmark. And so Roger, if you want to go back up a couple slides.
Hey, Kim, just a quick question
Yeah.
on that last one. Who are the detractors? What's your impression on who they're made up of?
I can't answer that. I think some people they might have they just might have a bad service, or they don't have a good router. We see a lot of people who complain because they just might have bad equipment or don't call in. So a lot of people might have used their old CenturyLink router or something like that, and they're saying, well, I'm not getting the speeds. And we're like, well, you need to go out there and figure out, like, we need to go get a new router or something. And they just complain without trying to fix their problems a lot of times, if what I've seen.
Well, there's some people that still kind of have a negative opinion of, you
Government.
know, the city and the government and Utopia and all that stuff, but it's still really awesome service. And so there's some of those where they're like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend this in the sense that like some cities should do this partnership, but I'm a subscriber because it's still a heck of a lot better than Comcast or CenturyLink or something like that. We hear from them occasionally. I guess some of those are those types of attitudes.
And they don't think it's a proper role of government, or they don't understand, or they listen to some of the propaganda in the press that is not necessarily truthful. So it's a little mix, but that's a good question, Wayne. And we've really combed through we had some open-ended questions on this that are not, that we don't have the results here, that we can provide at a later time. But just some people, like, they'll just talk about that we should sell to other telecom providers or whatnot, to Roger's point.
Gotcha.
Roger, yeah, do you want to go up a couple slides? Couple slides back. Okay, down one. The one thing that we saw was really important. One up. That one, stop. Is that the role of net neutrality, that how much people believe that they sign up for us and they agree that they like us because of net neutrality, that our providers are net neutral, that we're not prioritizing any traffic on our network, nor our providers. I thought this was extremely interesting that we had such a big uptick, that net neutral. And I think that is a huge thing, is like, as more and more people are starting to be aware of privacy concerns with other telecom providers and whatnot, that people want net neutral and their privacy protected with this, that we found out in the survey. And then the last question.
Yeah, and just on net neutrality real quick, net neutrality was the idea that there was going to be like federal regulations that required providers to not have throttling and caps and paid prioritization, things like that. And net neutrality is not at play. That was not put in place, or at least it was revoked. But what our position has been is, if you have a competitive marketplace, that solves net neutrality, because a provider, any of the providers on our network, if they start imposing these caps and doing paid prioritization, things like that, or throttling, they'll lose that customer. And so even though we're not, like, from a regulatory perspective imposing net neutrality, the result of a competitive marketplace on Utopia Fiber is that you do get net neutrality type protections. And that is something that people want. So anyway, I don't want anybody to think that we have that actually in place.
Yeah.
It's a
Good point,
thing
Roger.
to talk about.
And then I think this is a good statement, especially for you guys who are community leaders and city managers and whatnot, is that these people who sign, who are subscribers, they said, what is the impact of Utopia Fiber on my community? And it's about 74% people think that their community is somewhat or much better because Utopia Fiber is in it. This is very different from, yet again, some of the propaganda that is spewed out in the press, that people are unhappy that the city's got into this. The subscribers are very happy that the city got into this, and it continues to get into this. But with that, Roger, I am done and you can go to my last slide, until next year. Until next year, when we do this again, to do a baseline of where we are. Any questions?
I do have a couple comments. Quality of life, if you've ever dealt with CenturyLink, just having your internet up when you go to sign on will improve your quality of life. So I think I've had this service since 2016. I think I answered that survey question with customer service is not applicable, because I have not called since I got it installed. So it's not applicable to me. I don't deal with customer service. So.
Well, I think that's a good point, but Brenda, that's a great point you're the person I was wondering who was not applicable. So
Yeah.
But I think that's a great point because your service has been so good and reliable that you haven't had to call us.
Right. And then I was just wondering, how do I tell what service I have? Because I just looked at my bill while you were talking and it doesn't tell me what service I'm signed up for. I'm paying $30. It doesn't say anywhere on there what it is and that you even offer a different one.
It would be your bill would come from your ISP with that information on it.
That information gives, so I'd actually have to go look at their bill. I never look at
You
either
got
one
two
of them.
bills, one from us and one from some other company, and whoever that other company is that's billing you is your provider.
Okay, so I'll go look at their bill and see what they're charging me.
But
Okay.
I do appreciate that quality of life comment because I'm like, as I'm sitting here in a hotel and my internet keeps going down, I can understand not having internet and having stable internet would improve my quality of life as well.
Yeah, when you go to watch Netflix, if it's working, and if you're dealing with CenturyLink or it's slowed down because everybody in your whole neighborhood's on it, that affects your quality of life.
Anybody else?
Kim, this is Sean from Tremont. I just wondered if we could have copies of the slides. I didn't see them in the packet. Is it possible to share it with our council?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you. That was a great presentation, Kim. Really appreciate that information. And yeah, for sure. Just also wanted to reiterate, I'd love a copy of those slides too. That'd be a big help with my council members. Also just wanted to interject a note here. I'm going to have to leave at 10 till. So I think, Adam, you're up next for running the meeting. Are you okay to pick that up for me if the meeting's still going on at that point?
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you. Okay, with that, our next item is number 5, Utopia Financial Update. Laurie?
Thank you. Roger, if you wouldn't mind pulling the packet up again. These are very preliminary financial statements for Utopia for the year ending June 30th, 2021. Total assets, 58 million. That is about 8 million lower than we showed for fiscal year 2020. Almost all of that is related to depreciation of fixed assets. Total assets and deferred outflow of resources, 171 million compared to 179, again, related to depreciation and amortization. On the next slide, liabilities and net position. Our total liabilities preliminary for June 30th, 2021, $474 million. That compared to fiscal year 2020 is an increase of about 14 million. And that is generally related to the increase in the notes payable to the cities. As the cities make their pledge payments, Utopia records a note payable to them. So that number is going to continue to grow. The reduction in the bonds payable is going to be much less than that because although we are making payments on those bonds, most of that is going to interest. So unfortunately for Utopia, this is just what the financial statement is going to look like for quite some time. Net position, a deficit of 303 million. Last year, that net position number was 282 million. So that's a $20 million decrease in net position, very similar to the loss from fiscal year 2020. So not a lot of change there. The next statement is revenues and expenditures. Total operating revenues for fiscal year 21, about 14 million. That's 2 million higher than it was for 2020. A lot of that is related to the money that comes over from UIA to cover operating costs of Utopia. That $2 million increase is very close to what we budgeted. Total operating expenses of 18 million. Most of that is depreciation. The total operating loss for the year, about 4.8 million, compared to about 5.6 million for 2020. Change in net position, or the total net loss for fiscal year 21 is $20 million. And most of that is related to the interest that is paid on the Utopia bonds, resulting in a total net position at the end of the year of $300 million. The next
So it sounds
slide,
a lot worse than it is, because that's, I mean, really all the
All the
downside
fixed
is
assets.
outstanding bonds from the original Utopia bonds, nothing UIA, nothing since 2009, whatever, and all the net notes payable by the cities. And then the depreciation is always hitting us harder than it really should, and we're going to adjust that. But we're actually making good progress.
we are.
It just doesn't look like it when you look at the those big dollars on those bonds. Now, obviously, we haven't issued any new debt at Utopia, even though the notes payable grows as cities make payments there. So the story told by opposition, is like, hey, look, Utopia's falling further and further behind in its debt. Well, it's like, well, there's no new debts. This is just payments on old debt, on those original Utopia bonds and the refinanced Utopia bonds.
It's a difficult one to explain to city councils, and it always gets them focused on, Utopia is going deeper and deeper in debt, maybe. And everyone needs to remember that one of our main goals is to take over the payments of that Utopia debt, so that we don't have to continue borrowing from the cities to make that debt. This next graph is the recurring revenue combined for Utopia and UIA. Utopia remains pretty consistent at about $650,000 in recurring revenue month over month. UIA is bringing in about $2.1 million each month. And so our recurring revenue each month is about $2.75 million. That's Utopia and UIA combined.
Hey, Laurie, can I interject a comment here?
Yes.
Some of the board members that have been around longer may get tired of hearing me rehash this, but this information is a never-ending source of happiness and amazement for me. So I thought about a different way I was looking at it today, which was way back in the days before June of 2012, when our recurring revenues was in pretty rough shape, even rougher than the 500,000 it looks like there. I use that to sort of contrast when we crossed the $1 million of recurring revenue for the first time, which was, roughly around the end of 2015. So we'd been in operation for, at that point, at least 10 years or more with paying customers and bills. It then took us roughly 4 more years to cross the $2 million threshold. And by the looks of it on this trajectory, we could actually hit that 3 million by the end of this year or close to it, which is to me just amazing. So I just wanted to point that out. Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you, Wayne. The next slide shows the combined UIA and Utopia recurring revenue increase. So increase in recurring revenue month to month. This is a 12-month moving average. We are hovering at around a $40,000 increase month over month. It dropped a little, trailed off a little bit from this spike, this COVID spike, which really started in the spring of 2020. A lot of that, we believe, is a delay in the release of some of our footprints. We ran into some permitting issues, some right-of-way issues. We've released quite a few footprints just in the last month. And then also, Roger, you might speak to this better, but First Digital acquired Veracity. And so some of our business revenue from Veracity has dropped because if they have the ability to provide services over their fiber, they're going to do that rather than leasing it from us. with First Digital, they're in a position to do that. Did I state that correctly, Roger?
Yeah, that's right. So we took a hit for anything they could immediately convert over. And there'll probably be some incremental as some things fall off of contracts with us that they'll switch off of UTOPIA over to the First Digital network, since now they are the same with First Digital and Veracity. It's not going to be a huge thing, and we have a lot of other things at play. We've also taken some cancellations on some cellular backhaul that'll hit us as well. But at the same time, we have some really good ones coming in too. So we've gotten some additional orders going through with the state of Utah itself. I guess technically it's Department of Technology Services. And we've done very well with the schools. And so we're wrapping up a lot of installations with schools. We were the #1 awardee on this last round of UETN bids. So as we continue to finish those installations, put them into billing, we've got a lot of really good things and a lot of things that kind of count against us. The nice thing is that we're still, from a long-term perspective, trending very well. But, we see that little decline there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more of a decline over the next month or two. But overall, this is still a rate of increase chart. So anything above 0 means we're still growing. But I think we're still going to see some strong growth overall. And then I don't know if you mentioned it, but our release of new addresses on the residential side has been very slow in the last few months, just because of timing of things. And then we completed a really large area in Midvale, which marks the completion of Midvale City, as well as some new area in Clearfield. And we've got several queued up, soon to be released in West Valley. In Orem, we'll see a lot of stuff coming out, which will give us many thousands of new additional addresses with a lot of new customer growth coming off of those on the residential side. So I think everything is really, really good. Just even again, to your comment on that other chart, Wayne, going back in time, saying in the context of things, we were really happy a number of years ago when we were doing $10,000 month over month growth from a monthly recurring perspective. 20,000 was really kind of amazing that we got to that point, and to be seeing some months here up in the $30,000 and $40,000 range month over month growth is really, really exciting. And we're going to just keep pushing at that, see how high we can do that. And with the new city partnerships coming on, with getting a lot of new area in Clearfield, Pleasant Grove, and then Syracuse, in addition to the remaining areas in Orem, Murray, and West Valley City, will give us a lot of territory and new potential customers to see some strong growth from. So the future is looking really good.
Hey, Roger, since you mentioned it, and I was going to bring it up at the end of the meeting, but I literally went from having a group of people who were constantly haranguing me and very angry that we didn't have UTOPIA in their area, to when we had harvest days this week, those same people were coming around and had this almost eerie, joyful look on their face when they were talking about UTOPIA because they were able to sign up. The complete 180 on that was impressive. Anyway, all that is to say, there is a big bunch of people in Midvale who are ecstatic that they can now access UTOPIA. So thank you.
And that's been a very patient group of people. I mean, some of them very frustrated with this, but rightfully, I think we ran into every possible problem building out that area. So it took a lot longer than we'd hoped, and that applies to a lot across our network. But the pace of construction is going a lot better now. But yeah, that Midvale 12 area was something like 1,600 homes, which is a big part of the city. We were really excited to finally get that wrapped up and released to installations. So glad it was a good timing to get it, before your festival there. So they had something to celebrate.
Yeah, no, it was really great. And like I said, they were happy. So I appreciate it. I got a few other things that maybe we can consult on how to get people to make a 180 turn on some things too, on other topics, not unrelated. Thanks.
Okay, Laurie? Or did you have other comments? Or Laurie, did you want to keep going on these?
I have just one more slide. I realize this is a UTOPIA meeting. I also realize that the UTOPIA board is very interested in how UIA is doing. So this is UIA revenue versus monthly recurring revenue for UIA. compared to monthly bond obligation. So we are over 2 million. Our monthly bond obligations are 1.5 million. There is enough margin there to cover all of our operating costs, which gives us a good one-to-one coverage. And then because of the franchise fee revenue pledge of the UIA cities, it gives us 1.5. We're easily maintaining 1.5 times coverage on our debt. The UIA Syracuse bond was just rated. It's a AA minus. It's very good. It's scheduled to price the week of August 26th, closing mid-September. I also wanted to mention that we are in the process of transitioning from our payment portal, our ePay portal, to Express Bill Pay. Most of our cities are using Express Bill Pay for their utility bills. I've been very impressed with the Express Bill Pay. I'm excited to get our customers over to that system, and that will be completed on September 1st. And then one other thing I just wanted to mention for Utopia, we are currently going through our insurance renewal. They are really hitting us hard on cybersecurity, understandably, requiring two-factor authentication. So we'll probably be spending a little money to make sure that all of our systems are very secure. And my guess is that a lot of you as cities are going through that same exercise right now. But we can easily do what they're asking us to do. It's not a major change for us. And that's really all I have, unless you have any questions.
I want to make a point on this chart here, just from a conceptual perspective on where revenues are coming from, because this basically looks like, oh, hey, look, we did this project here with, the Series 2021 and we have revenues, but that's not actually accurate. If you were to look at where the lion's share of subscriber growth and revenues are coming from, they're coming from these projects about 2 years previous. So the Layton project is where a lot of new revenues have been coming in. The Morgan project was a small one, but it's done well. Payson has been good. The West Point wrapped up, and we've got good customers coming in on that. Series 2019, we're kind of in the thick of that. Clearfield and later, we are not getting revenues from those yet. I mean, Clearfield, we have a few hundred customers. There's not significant revenue growth from any of these projects. So everything September 20th and later, this is all investment that we've financed and are building and will result in the revenues coming in at about a 2-year period is when we really see that revenue growth. So it's not so much like, hey, we're staying ahead of the debt. We are setting ourselves up to be pushing up into that $2.5–3 million. Those cities and those finances have already taken place. That's what, these lines represent revenues that will be coming and setting us up really well in the future for getting to that $3 and even to $4 million a month recurring revenues. So again, I just want to put that context out there that this chart's going to get really, really interesting as we continue to, as those projects are built and we get the customers onto those. There's a significant amount of build here that has not yet benefited from those revenues corresponding to those projects. So anyways, just a little comment there.
Okay, thank you, Lori and Roger, for that financial update. And we'll now move on. Roger, any other Utopia network updates you want to go through?
Oh yeah, I want to share our subscriber chart. Before we did that, I want to just bring up a couple things on the marketing side that I didn't bring it up during Kim's turn. And that's where there's been quite a bit of press lately, some news articles about some of these new city partnerships, also in the completion of some cities. And I wanted to extend an invitation out there to any of you in your cities that we'd be more than happy to come and do in-person updates now that things are kind of coming back to normal with city councils. If you want us to come and give a report, we'd love to do that. Generally, we try to do it at least once a year for each city. And I think we're outside of a year easily with any of the cities just because of the COVID situation. Additionally, as we complete a city, that's kind of an additional opportunity for press release and some positive attention. So with like Midvale, for example, wrapping up is a big deal. And we'll have some additionals that are coming down the pipeline. And then there's also an opportunity to recognize the city as a fiber city or even a 10 gig city. We see some cities out there, other projects get recognition for having this type of infrastructure in place, especially when it's done on a citywide basis. And to say, you know, what we've seen is cities bragging about, we are now a gig connected city because this gig capable network is citywide, and hooray, and you know, even receive an award or some sort of recognition. Our cities are 10 gig enabled. We're actually a full generation ahead of what we see those announcements doing, meaning that any subscriber anywhere in our cities can get a full 10 gig connection, and that's available today. Granted, it's still kind of on the bleeding edge a little bit, and we get, you know, installations here and there where people sign up for that, but we are future proof in that sense, and you know, the most connected from a speeds perspective of anywhere in the country, and there's only just a couple of other networks in the country that can offer that type of speed. So we've been considering actually having either a third party or even UTOPIA itself create an award in a kind of a certification of 10 gig that would be presented to cities to recognize that. If you're interested in that, you know, we don't want to like throw this like ceremony and stuff at the city if you don't want to do it. But if you want to participate in that, we think there's some good opportunity to bring attention to the, you know, the benefits to a community of doing that. And we'd like to schedule that and facilitate it with each city. So put that on your radar. And if you're like, hey, we're ready, we want to do that, please coordinate that with Kim, whether it's the 10 gig, you know, you're a 10 gig city type of award, if it's the completion of a build out of a city, or even if it's just a city council annual update of numbers and in progress, you know, all of those are things that we're interested in doing with you. That said, I wanted to just share some quick numbers on our subscriber counts. We've not shared these for a few months because we've had some problems with our reporting, not because there's any like actual problems with the numbers, just that we changed systems, and between the address data that we import from the state and the counties and our own reporting and of subscribers and how we track them, we've defined them a little differently. We had a couple of anomalies here and there. The important numbers we know that are right are our subscribers. You know, we do have over 40,000 subscribers now, which is very exciting. You know, it probably won't be that far out when we hit 50,000. I'll have to have some sort of celebration or something. I don't know. That's exciting. I mean, you look at this and it's just like most of the customers have come on just in the last few years. I mean, we've really been cranking and growing. Some of the availability numbers, you'll see like something dip, and that doesn't actually make any sense. We don't have service anywhere and then remove service. That again, that's some errata from the state and county data. And then we've also had some fluctuations in subscriber counts. And so as you look at those, like on residential, you see there's a little bit of a bump here, and that's not actually what's happened. So we're trying to fix that. But the latest, if you look at the end of these charts, they're very accurate. It's just that migration of data, we've got to reconcile some of that and see if we can smooth out these lines to be a little more accurate. Again, most of that was just a kind of a bump from how we classify addresses and subscribers. These are actually not subscribers. We call them subscribers, but say there's like a church account, you know, they may have 200 churches. These are actually services at unique locations. It's probably actually a more accurate way to describe these. That doesn't sound very exciting for a report, so we still call it a subscriber report. But that's a more accurate way of measuring the service that we're providing. So anyways, it's very good. Then this has reports down to the city level. We'll send this out. So any board members will have this. You can drill into your own specific cities. You can share this with your councils and mayors or whoever you want to. This doesn't have detail that we're trying to keep private or anything. So feel free to share that. But it's all trending very well. Subscriber rates are up everywhere. occasionally there's dips in take rates. And again, that's some address data. Sometimes it's we just add more addresses in a city and say, hey, this new big area like Midvale, I would expect a decrease in take rate because we just added another 1,600 addresses in the city that can sign up, but they haven't had time to actually be installed yet. So that'll show up in next month's report. So that sort of stuff happens. But anyways, overall, the first 2 pages are the overall network stats. It's very good progress. As far as additional city growth, I think you guys will be interested in how that's going. We did just do groundbreaking for Pleasant Grove. Construction's underway in Pleasant Grove, and we're also starting construction in Syracuse. We're maybe just a month behind, not behind schedule, but just behind from a timeline perspective on Syracuse. And then we've got several other cities in various stages of RFPs and proposals and scoring and decision making. We're constantly evaluating, like, is this too much? Is this going to affect us? And so far, we've been able to keep up on our 5-year plan with the original cities, with those wrapping up over the next 6 months to a year. And also taking advantage of these good mutually beneficial partnerships with new cities. And so it's all going very well, and demand is up and the reputation is good. Customer satisfaction is good. And we're just trying to keep up with the demand without losing our minds. Things are busy at Utopia, but it's good to be busy. So we got a good team. It's keeping up with it and providing good service. So we hope you're all happy and we're always here if you have questions or comments, and if you want to schedule those meetings and events with us, we'd love to do that. That's all I've got for that agenda item on the network update. Any questions for me?
Hearing nothing there. Thank you, Roger, and all of your team. We appreciate the information. Looks like we are ready for a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else.
I move that we adjourn.
Got a first by Matt. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned here for 2 months. Is that right, Roger?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless
Thanks.
we have a special meeting.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.